Hi, I want to share with you how to make more attractive and pleasing posters, designs, presentations, just using some of the basic principles in design. First of all, you want to think of proximity. With proximity, it's really good to, at the forefront, think of white space. And so the more white space that you have in a graphic or a poster or a presentation, usually the more calm and more relaxed we're able to be when we view it. So in these two examples, the one on the left is a little bit more calm than the one on the right. Okay. Um, Same with this. See all the white space around the one focal point. Okay. Another example of more like um, negative or white space. Same with this palm tree. Now, when you use your proximity with designs, as you can see with these two business cards, one, it kind of fills up and kind of crushes your white space. On the other one, it groups things together and creates more what we call white space or area that's empty. So I know it's tempting when you have a blank sheet and you're first starting to make a handout or a presentation and you really want to fill up that white space, but try to avoid that at all costs and try to group things together. If you notice in this graphic, we grouped, the contact information and the addresses together, instead of keeping them separate. Let's look at the Los Angeles Times. They have a lot of things that they need to show us as a viewer. And one thing is they rely on advertisements, so they need to have these advertisements here. But if you notice, there is a grouping element going on. You notice the links are here. The black is a good contrast to help separate the title from the subject. They have subjects here in the middle grouped together, and then they have the longer articles on the left. And these advertisements and images on the right help separate all this busy text from the right. So even though this is a busy layout because there's a lot of information, it is well planned out, and proximity is used to group similar like objects or content. Flow is really important. When you look at design, you want things to flow well. Okay, and this is an example that I created um, with some images that I took. And if you notice, um, you want to avoid trying to have images that pop out of your text like this and create kind of a distraction. Okay. Instead, and if you notice this, see how this girl, there's this white space and it's kind of awkward around her because it's cut off. So another way of doing that is putting her more down to the edge so it's not so obviously cut off, and also moving this graphic in so it blends well with the text here. Um, Also, if you notice, see museum fun is here like this, and there's a lot of segregation. If we just simply added a little bit of interjections between the text and the image, it kind of flows a little bit better and you read it more together. Um, Logos also use a lot of flow in terms of reading them in design. Here's an example of some information that I create as an example. So as you notice, there's a lot of things going on here. The text, the written by, the name, the title. Okay, it doesn't really flow well. There's a lot of space that's trapped here. So instead, what we do is we try to group things together, create more open white space here and here, and we try to link the two, the black and the white with the L, and be a little bit creative. So as you can see, it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye in this example that I created. Okay, so in magazine layouts, they use the same thing with columns and trying to group things together. And so definitely try to use contrast, okay, and white space. And again, narrow columns, it's a lot easier to read things when their column is narrow because they say the less words per line, the less your eye has to follow um, that, um, that long line of text. If you have a smaller column that's more narrower, the eye can much easily read the text and just go down the line instead of all the way across, kind of like a typewriter, like da 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 da. Doot. So something to consider when creating your layouts and design. I did want to talk about color a little bit because sometimes it's hard when you're staring at this blank space. What color should I choose to start out with? And so sometimes our eyes are biased, and what we think may coordinate well together may not. We shouldn't just go around and just say, "Hey, I'm going to start with this color, and then I want to go and I want it this color, and or this color." Um, there's color rules that we should be aware of that goes well together. Um, one site that I like to use is Cooler. Okay, that's Kuler. And with this site, there's color rules. So if we're not really good in art, we can just use this site to find colors that coordinate well together. So these are the rules. So for example, complementary colors, that's probably the most common and obvious. Those are on the color wheel. This is a color wheel. These are the colors that are opposite of each other. And so with this site, you can basically drag your bars across and it will show you the complementary colors, and you can drag this middle bar in to show the different shades. And then you can get the colors that will complement each other. And so then you can take these colors and then try to match that with whichever program that you're using, and it has the color codes below. Or you can just try to match it up. You can also use shades, okay? So different shades of a similar or same color. And you can take a look at all these different things. There is an uh, iPad version that I wanted to show you guys um, that I find really helpful. It's called IRO, IRO, and with IRO, you can use this again the same way, finding your color um, shades. Again, we can use shades and compound and triad, and then get exactly the colors that we want. So I really like that um, one to use for colors. Another iPad thing that I use for is Keynote. Okay, and so if you're on the go and you want to create a quick presentation, you can easily create a Keynote um, from that. Now, try to avoid. Now, you want to choose an appropriate theme that goes well with your presentation. The safest is to keep one of the basic colors like black and white, gradient, maybe the gray or the blue. But try not to be too crazy with your colors and photos and things, because you don't want to get too distracting from the content. Okay. And something I really like with the Keynote is it's really easy just to touch and drag, even with your pictures. You know, you can easily resize your pictures and move them to where you want. Create new slides. You have a lot of good options that you have. A lot of good styles. So I do recommend, easy to share, that you check out Keynote for the iPad for when you're on the go and want to create new presentations that is really easy to edit. Okay, um, some some things that I recommend when creating presentations, though, and in layouts. Make sure this you see on the side here. Make sure your margins. You always have wide margins. Don't get your text too close to this. Actually, I always like to maybe even double my margins to make it even more white space around the topic, because usually less is more. You know, if you go into those fancy shops that a belt costs $500, um, like at Louis Vuitton, like they don't have a lot of stuff like cluttered like a dollar store kind of place, you know. So you want to watch out for your screen or your presentation real estate and make sure that it's quality, not just quantity of space, because there'll be more value the less that you put into it. A lot of times presenters, they'll just put a photograph, you know, right in for their presentation, and then they won't put any words, and they'll just use these visual cues, you know, to present, and they'll let if you basically have a presentation with all of the text already written, kind of like this one. This is a really bad presentation PowerPoint. So if I was presenting, I wouldn't want to do something like this, because what's the point of me reading off of these when anyone can simply just read these things? Um, it would be more graphically better to maybe put an image for a visual recall cue, and then maybe one or two words or a title. And yeah, these are some helpful information to make your presentations better. For titles, it is nice to have more creative, short titles, one or two words, and a little bit more creative than the actual thing that's going to happen. And try to memorize your information. Like in this case, it's not really memorized; it's just listed. And then watch your animation so that it doesn't distract from your content. And then watch, and using graphs and tables can be very helpful. Um, for example, if I was going to show statistics on iPads, you wouldn't want to just put a bunch of numbers and percentages of like what men do with iPads and what women do with iPads. Instead, there's graphics. They create these tables with graphics like this that's more visually appealing in what people do with the iPad. So again, visually is better, usually better than the content. It does take more time. So if you do have the time, you can do that. But try more visual than written. Um, when you do use background pictures, okay, make sure they're good quality. Make sure they don't have like um, watermarks and things like that, or they're very small and you blow them up. And try to use contrasting colors. If it's like a dark color, use on a light color, kind of like this. How you want bright on dark or dark on bright. But try to avoid like black on red, because it has negative connotations, or like too similar colors, that is hard to see and hard to read. Okay, so again, high contrast will always be good, but always test. If you're going to give a presentation, test it on the screen, because a lot of times it will wash out the colors. For example, like if I was to present this, basically I don't think I would see this blue on a projector screen. On our laptops or computers or iPads, our screens are such high resolution and are great, but a lot of times other people don't have that high of resolution on their own, or it's a presentation. So you want to be safe and make sure that it's contrasting colors when you do that. And when you do choose fonts for presentations, usually it's safe to stick with your sans serif. And sans serif means, they don't have, if you look on the S right here, you see those little up and down lines on the ends of the S. Those are called serifs. And so sans serifs means that there is none of those little lines, whereas these there are. And these are used more for formalities or formal documents, or more so like newspapers, and these are more informal. So it depends what you want to go with, but you should never mix these two families. So stick with either serif or sans serif types of fonts. And when you make bullets, don't make more than 5 on a slide. That's usually the general rule. So don't think I have to pack everything on. You have unlimited number of slides that you can go through. So definitely try to avoid more than 5. And observe it. Try not to have more than 25 words per slide. That's what they generally say. And when you get too many words like this, people just look at the slide, roll their eyes, and just sit back and don't either skip it, or will tune you out if you try to read all that. And you probably already know that, but try to break up the information. Again, the thing that this is really lacking is that visual cue. There's no images to match with this. And if you can't find any images and things, just take some paper and sketch an image and take a picture of it and insert it. Sometimes the people will like just more originality, even if you're not a good artist. Just using a marker and doing some fun things with it. Sometimes more originality with stick figures will go much more further than this really great graphic that you found. So definitely try to relate to your audience. And before I end, I gotta say, try to avoid clip art. Clip art is very cheesy, and it just shows it's basically outdated. things like this. So obviously, try to avoid things like that.